You're listening to the Fan2Fan Podcast, and on this episode, we're talking monsters. Specifically, we're doing Monster Mania. We're talking cryptids, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, and more. Here we go. Welcome back to the Fan2Fan Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Bernie Gonzalez. With me, as always, fellow co-host Pete Charbonneau. Pete, I think for better or for worse, better for us, worse for the people that aren't enjoying this, but we've been having Monster Mania kaiju-sized episodes covering cryptids, kaiju, atomic age monsters, universal monsters. Oh my.
We got monsters coming out our ears, and it's been a lot of fun.
Happy moment. The first time we've been able to drive away that Monster Zero and not suffer any damage or loss of life.
I think you and I both enjoy talking monsters. Clearly, we've made a couple of months worth of content out of it. So, again, hopefully listeners out there are enjoying it as much as we are. But, yeah, we're having a good time with it. And spoiler alert, we're going to continue to have a good time with it.
That's right. If people read the title of the episode and hit play, they should be very aware of this.
And if anyone remembers or listened to some previous quiz episodes where Bernie, being the consummate host, was the host of various iterations. We had John Carpenter trivia. We knocked out a couple of ones, and I was the lucky contestant. Now the tables are turned, and I have come up with a series of monster trivia questions, and now it is Bernie who will be put to the test. So I have 14 questions, and they comprise of 3 categories: kaiju, cryptids, and atomic age monsters. Which category do you want to go with first, Bernie?
I think I would like to start with cryptids.
All right, Bernie is going to start with cryptids. Question. The $6 Million Man was no stranger to unexplained phenomena. He famously battled the legendary Bigfoot on his titular show, and it was such a crowd pleaser watching Steve Austin and Sasquatch fight in slow motion, he was brought back for multiple episodes. Which 2 famous personalities played Bigfoot on the $6 Million Man TV show?
Ooh, this is a good one. I feel like I should know his name, Pete, but is he the actor who played Jaws in the James Bond series and also played one of the aliens in the Twilight Zone episode To Serve Man?
That is an incredible guess, and it is unfortunately the wrong answer.
An incredibly incorrect guess.
Yes, incredibly incorrect.
It's bionic Bigfoot, new from Kenner. And the $6 Million Man.
Look out, Steve! You'll never beat Bigfoot. Oh yeah, this will stop synchronic circuit. Give up, Bigfoot. Bigfoot never gives up.
Bionic Bigfoot, new from Kenner. $6 Million Man sold separately.
This is interesting, Pete, because this is an era that very much fills in a lot of our summers, right? No school. I'm assuming at that point your mom's telling you, Pete, you can't stay indoors. You got to get the hell out of the house. I need some peace and quiet. So you find your way out, but maybe you find your way back around like 2 or 3 p.m. and all of a sudden there are reruns of $6 Million Man, A-Team, Knight Rider going on. And you're like, you know what? This gets me to dinner. This is great. I do know that the $6 Million Man certainly fought Bigfoot and a bear, I believe, at one point. May have thrown that bear.
I think that was the Incredible Hulk that threw the bear.
See, this is where all of this stuff kind of melds into some amazing 80s awesomeness, Pete. But I do not know the 2 actors that played Bigfoot in $6 Million Man.
Well, I have the answers in front of me, so yes, I do have them. You were very close, because the person you were thinking of was Richard Kiel, a very large-framed character actor, deep voice. And when you think deep voices, you might also think of the actor who played Lurch on the Addams Family, Ted Cassidy. And Ted Cassidy was one of the actors to play Bigfoot in the $6 Million Man TV show. The other one, famously, was none other than the eighth wonder of the world, Andre the Giant. Everyone out there, hopefully you're playing along, and if you are, we'd certainly encourage you to press pause on the podcast if you'd like to shout out the answers wherever you are, in your car, at the supermarket, in church. Specifically, that probably best of all, if you're in church, just shout out these answers, and you probably get an amen or two out of someone, I'm guessing, I'm hoping.
Channel 20's Monster Movie Marathon continues after this.
Fear not, we've got more, and we'll go to our second question in the cryptids category. And that second question is, Sid and Marty Krofft of Land of the Lost fame, they got themselves some squatch fever in 1977 and 1979, producing an episodic show starring a Bigfoot who fights aliens and crime. Bigfoot couldn't do it alone, though, and he had a partner with him on this show. What was his partner's name, which completed the title of the show? And we have multiple choice. Every question from here on out will be multiple choice. So your choices are Bigfoot and Wild Boy, Bigfoot and Littlefoot, Bigfoot and the Feral Kid, or Bigfoot and Jungle Jim.
Great options, because H.R. Puffin stuff in Land of the Lost that you mentioned, was it Sigmund and the Sea Monster? They were released at a time when, one, I wasn't born yet, so let's be clear about that. But two, at a time that feels very psychedelic and a little strange. Like they were a little bit more abstract than a lot of the shows that I was kind of watching at the time that were more...
Some substances involved in the creative team.
You and I have such a love for Land of the Lost from our like vivid imagination and wanting to kind of get lost in that world.
Kind of kaiju in a way, if we're keeping that aperture nice and open,
Hey, Will, look at this.
I wonder who wrote it. Beware of Sleestack.
Srisataka!
Hey, what's wrong with you, Chaka?
Srisataka! He's been muttering that for hours. Srisataka!
Hey, do you think he could mean Sleestack?
Yo, Srisataka! See, he does mean Sleestack.
Yeah, Godzilla's having some cereal on a Saturday morning, let's see what the relatives are up to.
That's right. Well, you gave me a slew of very good choices, Pete. I will have to say it is Bigfoot and Wild Boy.
You are correct, sir. He is on the board.
Out of the great Northwest comes the legendary Bigfoot, who 8 years ago saved a young child lost in the vast wilderness and raised that child until he grew up to be Wild Boy.
This was part of the Krofft Super Show in 1977. I believe it started out as like 15-minute episodes that would always have like a cliffhanger at the end, and then they brought it back in 79 for like a full 30-minute episode. I vaguely remember it. I certainly knew of it, and I'm sure I watched a bunch of episodes. I couldn't tell you anything that happens in it other than I remember some guy dressed as Bigfoot and Wild Boy like running through the forest somewhere doing something, apparently fighting crime. I didn't even know that they fought crime, and that's pretty badass in of itself. Like, I don't know if Bigfoot went and got his private detective license or whatever, if he was accredited or whatnot, or how that happened, but apparently in the 70s, you didn't need it. You just needed to find out where the bad guys were and take care of business. TCB.
Considering the theme of what we've been talking about, like we can see now that it's technically a cryptid, but at the time it was a monster, but it wasn't a mean monster either.
Bigfoot had a moment in the 70s where they came on strong. Like everything was Bigfoot for a while in the mid to late 70s. I think there's probably another crop of sightings out in the Pacific Northwest and some TV movies.
July 1960. While flying over a remote section of northern Canada, a Canadian aircraft patrol pilot suddenly encountered the huge shape of a strange unknown giant. But what was it? And where did it come from? Now comes a motion picture that explores this incredible mystery. Don't miss Sasquatch, rated G.
Now showing at the Embassy, 46th Street. Starts tomorrow throughout Greater New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Watch for this ad in your local newspaper.
Bigfoot was he was having his time in the sun, time in the spotlight, which is kind of antithetical to a creature that notoriously shuns spotlights and cameras. But
it makes sense, because the thing that would make up episodes of In Search of, those Time Life book series that talked about monsters and cryptids, and all of a sudden Sid and Marty Krofft are like, we can do something with this.
jumping on a trend for sure. And, 70s was a big time of getting back to nature. A lot of people were camping. You know what happens when you camp? You start to encroach on Bigfoot territory. So unless you've got a satchel full of apples to make friends with the Sasquatch, there's a chance that your pup tent might get wrecked.
Good thing is you never had to worry about Bigfoot and Wild Boy doing that, because they would actually just find the people who stole your tent because they were fighting crime.
Exactly. Right. Like, yeah, now the shoe is on the other Bigfoot, because, they're being called in to investigate. We'll have to go back and investigate it. We'll find out. But what we won't need to investigate is the fact that Bernie has himself one right answer. So he is 1 for 2 here on the monster trivia. And we're going to move on to question 3, which is our final question in the cryptids category. We're going to travel from the Pacific Northwest across the United States, and then we're going to take a leap across the pond to a little place we like to call Scotland. There's a cryptid that's notoriously and famously associated with Scotland. And of course, that's the Loch Ness Monster. Loch Ness Monster has been playing hide and seek with the public ever since its first reported sighting by St. Columba in 565 AD. I'm going to put the question to you. What is the name of the castle that lords over Loch Ness? Is it White Castle, Urquhart Castle, Balmoral Castle, Nick Castle, or Inverness Castle?
Like you mentioned, the Loch Ness Monster, aka Nessie, been purported to be a dinosaur. People have said it's an eel. Maybe it's just a person with a sock that's a scuba diver that's going around. There were these pseudo-scientific specials that they would air where they would talk about like using radar to hit like the bottom of this like pond, river, what have you.
Yeah, they do like the sonar sweepers. They'd have like a fleet of boats that's kind of like going back and forth across the lake. And be like, something pinged my sonar.
A compelling mystery because in spite of the many sightings over hundreds of years, there was little evidence until recently to support the possibility of the creature being real. Tonight, we'll take a hard look at the new evidence. Its depth may exceed 900 feet in some places, but no one to this day knows for sure how deep the lake is. From MIT and the Academy of Applied Science they come. The National Geographic Society scours for underwater camera positions. Scientific associations in England are hard at work too.
With some of those shows, the fact that there was science involved made me want to watch till the last 15 minutes of this 60-minute special, because maybe, Pete, at the end, we would finally get to see some evidence, maybe a bone or something that would show, yes, like the Loch Ness Monster is there, whatever this cryptid is, it's been discovered. It's almost like that idea, right? Like vampires are kind of scary, but maybe what's more scary is that vampires exist. And if the Loch Ness Monster could be found because of science, oh my God, Pete, what else could be out there? Because there are oceans and rivers and lakes that could have their own versions of Nessies.
Going back to when I was more into the Nessie phenomenon, almost every photo that was like a wide shot of the lake, you would see the castle in the shot. And they would use it for like sense of scale. If there was like a ripple in the water, like, oh, are these the humps of Nessie? And you're not going to get me to say the name of it, but blank castle is there in the foreground to show you the sense of scale of how big that wake is.
I think I'm going to go with the last one, Pete, which I feel was Everness, Everlast, Ever After, something with an E castle.
Inverness Castle?
I'm going to go with Inverness, which may start with an I now that you say it instead of an
Inverness
E.
Castle featuring Everlast. That's where Everlast is performing, at Inverness Castle. Great guess, because I think the Inverness is that area of Scotland is called the Inverness. Any people of Scottish descent or any Scots out there can please correct me if I'm wrong. Unfortunately, Bernie, correct answer is Urquhart Castle.
Of Castle Urquhart in the highlands of northern Scotland dominates the shore of a lake shrouded by mystery. The murky waters have hidden a persistent and puzzling tale for 1,400 years. The lake lake is called Loch Ness. It is said that here lives a monster that can make the surface of the lake boil with foam. We will be closer to knowing the answer. Closer for having discovered new evidence in search of the Loch Ness Monster.
Brought to you by White Castle, no less, who is also a sponsor on this episode.
White Castle in my family, I've never been a fan because I'm not a big fan of the onions on the hamburgers, but my uncles, my dad, they would have contests of how many White Castles they could eat in one sitting. I don't know what the record is. It's probably got to be close to 40 because anyone that knows White Castle, they're like these little square burgers and, you think you can eat a ton of them and people do. And then they pay the price the next morning.
For 1,400 years, it has eluded man. Vague rumors, questionable evidence, all have led to dead ends in man's endless search for the monster. Until now, for as surely as you hear my voice, the Loch Ness Monster lives. Terrible in its power to drive man mad with fear. See for yourself when the Loch Ness Monster surfaces. At the Old Country Busch Gardens, Williamsburg.
Do you actually think there's a Loch Ness Monster in Scotland?
So like the X-Files, I want to believe. And when I was younger, I absolutely did. I was obsessed with the Loch Ness Monster, like a lot of people, certainly a lot of kids growing up. I studied all of it. I remember learning how, the Loch Ness is super deep because it was formed by glaciers and the Ice Age. And so it used to be connected to the sea. And so theoretically, a plesiosaur could have gotten trapped in there. And maybe because it's so murky, you can't see them. So maybe there's, a food supply that we don't know about that was able to sustain a family of plesiosaurs for tens of millions of years. But then that's, as you get older, you start to realize that's a long time to continue a life cycle of a species that, we have no other evidence of existing there. So I kind of fall now on the side of whatever the phenomenon is. It is 99% not a dinosaur. Maybe it is a sturgeon. Maybe it is just random currents in the lake and wake, and that makes, some interesting ripples. I know a couple of the famous photographs have turned out to be debunked. So at this stage, I need to see a little more hard evidence to sway me back. So I tend to fall on whatever it is. It's not, it's not the dinosaur that my childhood hoped it would be. How about you?
I want to believe as well. I think I've seen a few YouTube explainer videos where they bring out the science that talks about how a creature the size of Godzilla probably would not be able to survive on our planet because there would not be enough food to sustain it.
In terms of the science of monsters,
yes,
many of these are derived from actual life forms that are important to us, what we think about and
dinosaurs,
care about.
For example, in the case of Godzilla.
One thing I've always had an issue with was to be that large, yet that nimble.
Can't do it.
You can't do that.
Can't do it. No, it's physically impossible. The scaling of volume and surface area and height, right, goes at different powers.
Mathematical powers, not physical powers.
Well, that kind of too, right? So if I double in height, I'll actually increase by a factor of 8 in volume, right? 2 times 2 times 2, length and width and height. Ooh. So I would be 8 times larger in volume. And thus, presumably, all of the stuff inside me is made of the same material. I'm 8 times heavier. That means my legs have to support 8 times the weight. Now, if I get bigger, it gets worse. If I'm 10 times taller and wider and thicker, then I'm 1,000 times more massive. My legs are increasing in surface area, in cross-sectional area, only by a factor of 100 in that case. So my bones have to be 10 times stronger to support my weight.
Oh, because your strength goes not as the volume, but as the area,
that is
cross-sectional area of the muscle.
Right.
So,
and your muscles have to be 10 times stronger to propel them. And
that's absolutely right. If Godzilla being 400 feet tall or so in the first movie, all right,
Godzilla weigh 1 billion tons.
Yeah, so much that all known bone would shatter, right? All known muscles would tear. He would just be a blob of protoplasmic stuff because he couldn't support himself. Never mind walking with that cheerful little gait that he has.
Right.
He's nimble.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The same way, like actually with real things, that like a cricket can jump many times its own height, whereas humans can.
That's right. And so
if the cricket were outside, it would just collapse under its own.
Right.
Yeah, its legs would not be able to support itself.
Spindly little legs.
Because when you read about it as a kid, they'll say like, oh, a flea can jump however many times its own height, and if that were a human size, then it'd be able to jump over the Empire State Building or whatever it is. And that's actually no, it wouldn't. It would just kind of lie flat on the floor, kind of like kill me now.
These are people who don't know physics who are giving those answers.
But this is where that creation of monsters like Godzilla get exciting to us, because we do see animals, insects, things like that are smaller than us do amazing superhuman things if they were scaled up to size.
Right.
So we imagine that if they're even bigger than we are, they'd be even more amazing and powerful. But the physics prevents that. That doesn't make them any the less cool.
When you see those National Geographic Attenborough narrated specials and they show a whale, they give you a sense for the scale of the whale, and you realize how much food that organism must eat to survive. An organism, then you realize how many organisms have to exist in its ecosystem to continue feeding it for that long. So I think to your point, and you threw out like plesiosaur. Please, could you say it again, Sor? A species, a type of dinosaur that has been associated with what Loch Ness looks like or what it could be. There's the part of me that's like, yeah, obviously Godzilla couldn't exist, but also a movie that we grew up on, The Valley of Gwangi.
There was mighty Joe Young, the creature from the Black Lagoon, King Kong, and now there is Gwangi. Gwangi, born 50 million years ago and bursting from the bowels of the earth today to terrorize the West. Gwangi, the most mammoth monster of them all, terrifying survivor of a lost era, rampaging through a forbidden land, a land they call the Valley of Gwangi.
Where all of a sudden, like, that doesn't feel that crazy that there's these two raptor-sized dinosaurs. If they were in a valley with buffalo or cows or whatever that could feed them, and it could do that for centuries, okay, I can dig that. So I feel like there's a part of me that wants to believe that, yes, like the more we find out about our planet, the more we realize there's a lot of shit we just don't know about it. Yes, maybe there could be a creature like that. It just feels so unlikely, especially with something like Loch Ness that has been scrutinized so much, that I would think that a creature of what seems to be that size would have been found by now and would have been identified, because I also feel like there are enough people that are looking to identify it. It's kind of like the theory they always talk about, like all the number of secrets you would have to keep if our moon landing was fake. The amount of people who worked at NASA, the astronauts, the family members that are all like, oh, no, Stanley Kubrick shot this on a soundstage. It's like, well, what if the janitor talks? Or what if the janitor who was on PTO that day and then Frank covered his ship? What if Frank talks and he shared it with his great-great-grandson?
Frank got killed a long time ago because he didn't know Frank was going to talk.
Probably when he went to Scotland, was staying at that castle, and then fell into Loch Ness and into Nessie's mouth. So I want to believe Pete, but I probably more likely believe that the castle has an Airbnb now. That feels more realistic.
Come get some haggis. I'm not going to attempt a Scottish accent because I'm going to...
You were close, though.
I was thinking about it, but then I caught myself.
It was going to be somewhere between like Guy from Austin Powers.
Yeah, Fat Bastard.
It was going to be somewhere between Fat Bastard and the Scotsman from us.
So I married an axe murderer.
There you go.
Pants now.
Nessie is the greatest unsolved mystery of our time. They call her a monster.
And still they come. The curious, the thrill seekers, the scientists, the hunters who would kill for profit.
Shorty, I tell you, she's out there.
Now she is fighting back, and no one is safe. At last, the world's most treasured story comes to the screen.
To put a little bow on our cryptids category here before we move on to the next one, I think we can both agree that living in a world where there's that wonderment of could something like that exist, and not knowing 100% for sure makes the world a better place. And I, for one, am thankful that we grew up in that world where you did not have the scientist on in search of that was going to explain the amount of food needed to sustain an ecosystem of dinosaurs, to eat it. Like, it was more just like, hey, I dropped this sonar thing off the end of my boat and it pings something big and I don't know what it is. And then Leonard Nimoy is like, could it be the Loch Ness Monster? Maybe one day we'll find out. And that's the end of the episode. And so it keeps you kind of like, oh, well, I guess I got to get the next book out of the library or watch the next episode of In Search Of to find out more. So I am thankful for that world that if it doesn't exist now, at least it did at one time.
Give me some quickly edited footage, some ominous music, and Leonard Nimoy's voiceover, and I'll believe.
We now have volumes of data on the Loch Ness monsters, and none of the investigators involved disputes the probability that a creature lives in Loch Ness. And all of them agree that the intensive effort may soon turn up the monster of the lake.